Hello, everybody, and welcome to Chicago Reacts. My name is Lauren, and today I am very excited to be reacting to one of Roanoke Gaming's videos on The Last of Us. He is explaining the origin of the cordyceps fungal brain function, the immunity and outcome. There will probably be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't played the game, I would recommend not watching this yet until you've played the game or at least finished the show. I have been watching the show. It is fantastic. I love the game. So I'm very excited to be delving a little bit further into this world and to get to see some of the actual science behind this. It makes me, I'm so excited. I can't even tell you. So if you are just as excited as me to come along with this ride, let's go. This is the last that has explained the origin of the cordyceps, fungal brain function, and the immunity and outcome. Again, it's by Roanoke Gaming. If you have not seen his videos, make sure that you do go and watch them as well. And make sure you like this one. So thank you very much. Let us begin. I don't want to waste any more time. Let's just go.
Earth sports many variants of life, even if the majority of people believe it to just be plants and animals. Fungi, virus, bacteria, eukaryotic, prokaryotic, archaea, wherever you look, there are quite a few kingdoms concerning biology. What is most interesting is the animal-fungi split. It's easy to view fungi as a precursor to plant life, but actually it appeared around 9 million years later after plants, suggesting that the fungi actually split from animal life, meaning that it is closer in relation to animals as well. This split gives the fungus some interesting traits concerning animal influences to their biology.
And I'd heard that, like, somewhere, I don't remember where, but I have heard that, like, they're not really sure if fungi is a plant or an animal or not anything. I think it's basically what he's saying here. It's like, it is a different thing. It is a different thing entirely, which is terrifying.
Some are really good, such as antibiotics, and some are harmful, such as black molds and their effects on the respiratory functions. That being said, there are some versions of fungal life that are even more aggressive, and the response by animal life is just as strong. The issue is, should a fungus species get a hold of a host, or at least a foothold in it, this can lead to a large swath of problems for that particular animal. This is what the universe of The Last of Us is based in. A fungal spore getting a foothold in the human population and turning them into mindless, game-ending machines. But how does this specific fungus overcome the human immune system and conquer the brain? Is there anything based in reality, and what is the lore behind it? Well, strap in, because this is almost exactly my area of expertise concerning diseases and outbreaks. So I am super excited for this one. So with that set up, let's dive into the lore behind The Last of Us. So let's start by discussing the fungus for a moment, and believe me, it's much more interesting of a domain than you might imagine. Fungus is very opportunistic and will typically only attack creatures with weakened immune systems, or if they are specifically adapted to that organism. They require cool, damp places to survive and will produce spores to spread their influence. Typically, these spores induce an immune response, but there are specific types of fungal spores that overcome these defenses, and what's creepier, there are specific versions that are evolved to lessen the effectiveness of the human body's resistance to it, but we will get to that momentarily. Enter the cordyceps fungi. Now, there are quite a few different versions of this specific fungus, but to keep things simple, we will go by its genus name. The cordyceps fungus is responsible for the zombie ants that have captured a lot of people's interest over the years. If you are not really familiar with what I'm talking about, essentially there is a fungus that hijacks an ant's body. A spore attaches itself to the body of the ant and begins to burrow. After making contact with the brain, it will spread throughout the body, producing mycelium. However, it will not render the body immobile, at least initially. The cordyceps fungus will then alter the brain at specific points, causing the ant to wander away from the colony, or in some cases, concerning location, go back to the colony. However, most will find a shady place underneath a leaf and it grabs onto that point with its mandible. This death grip is where the ant ceases to be and the fungus thrives. The shady cool area allows for an explosion of growth as the fungus then begins to release spores to infect other ants. This infection can devastate a colony, leading to the extinction of that specific line. This is exactly what happened concerning the cordyceps fungus in The Last of Us. Most zombie-based games are like a mystery screwy virus or some sort of crazy parasite or a bacteria that infects the living and causes them to turn for unknown reasons. However, this fungus is something rooted in reality. It preys on animals, or specifically in this case concerning the game, humans, making them change into mindless husks seeking to spread the spores wherever. However, I would say what is most interesting about all this is usually cordyceps only affects insects, and insects, as we all know, were one of the first animals to come into being and dominated the planet a long time ago. They are also experts in adapting to different environments and reproduce on massive scales. It seems that the fungus chose a specific set of animals for this reason. But what is fairly disturbing, humans are not that far away from insects in terms of what we do. We are one of the most successful creatures on this planet.
I hadn't even thought about it that way.
All pieces of the world reproduce in high numbers. We number in the billions. So where insects used to be favorable, now mammals are due to our abundance. Again, I
mean, there are still way more insects than there are mammals. Like, there's like millions of, like, there's so many different types of species of insect. Also, I think in the show they talk about how like you can't, how like funguses don't really, like, can't exist in the host over a temperature of 94 degrees. I don't know if that's true. That was what they said in the show, but he was like, oh, but if the earth gets warmer, you know, wink wink. But also, I feel like I've also recently listened to a podcast where they talk about how like human bodies they seem to be cooling down. There hasn't been enough studies on that to say that's for sure, but it does seem like, at least according to a few studies, it seems like our bodies are cooling down a little bit. It's no longer at 97, 98 degrees is not necessarily the norm anymore. I think it's like 96.7 or something, somewhere between 96.7, 97 degrees is now, it's not 98.6. So the average human body is cooling down a little bit, and like there's lots of reasons for it. When they first came up with that 98.6 number, it's like, it was, you know, the 1800s or something like that, and so, you know, you question a little bit the veracity of it, but also it's like, as time has gone on, there are fewer illnesses that are getting, like, attaching themselves to everyone. Like, our immune systems have gotten better, so therefore we're not always like kind of running a little bit of a fever to kill off those extra germs and stuff, as we wash our hands, as we have cleaner water, the air still sucks, but you know, it's as the technology has improved and as our medicine has improved, we don't need to be keeping our bodies running that high anymore. And so the average temperature of humans has decreased a little bit. So, I mean, does that give us this fungus an extra little foothold? I don't know.
This is The Last of Us. The fungus made the jump to humans from insects, even though insects are quite successful. The biggest issue, though, concerning the insects is they have limited range concerning species location.
That's
While
fair.
Bugs can exist pretty much everywhere, this same species does not exist everywhere. But humans are the same species, and we pretty much exist everywhere. But let's stop for a second before getting all doom and gloom. Let's ask ourselves, why hasn't the fungus done this already if humans are so successful? Well, you have a tactical thermonuclear arsenal at your disposal known as your immune system. The fact is, your immune system can kill you if it is triggered in the wrong way. So incoming hostiles are something that it deals with on a daily basis. So just so you know, right now, you sitting there, you are currently breathing in spores right now, whether you are inside or outside, it doesn't matter. And every one of those spores looks at your lung as a great place for propagation. The fact is, we are attacked on a daily basis by thousands of threats because the air we breathe. However, in our lungs, there is a defense. Macrophages and dendrites take these incoming spores and annihilate the threat entirely. When a fungal spore enters the lungs, it attaches itself to the surface and begins trying to stake a claim to its new home. However, your body ain't having that, playa. The macrophages move in and attack the surface, releasing oxygen-reactive components. This will destroy the fungal spore completely, and the macrophage will move on to the next one it finds. This is the innate immune system hard at work. However, knowing what we know, there are clearly some flaws. It can be overwhelmed in and at which point the adaptive immune system should be activated, but what if the body can't react in time to this threat? This is how the cordyceps fungus operates in The Last of Us. There exists a certain type of cordyceps that is actively being used right now, just in case you guys want to know this, to aid in organ transplantation.
Oh,
as
good.
it possesses the ability to suppress the human immune system. This allows the organs to exist within the body without the constant threat of being attacked by its own immune system. So since we know in real life that cordyceps has the ability to suppress the immune system, I would say this suppression allows the cordyceps to enter the lungs of a person via spore and deactivate or overwhelm the innate immune system. However, the adaptive immune system is never activated afterwards, so the cordyceps begins to overtake a human in 1 to 2 days. So let's discuss what happened in The Last of Us and how it all went wrong for those who may or may not have played the game or are not familiar with the story. In The Last of Us, this fungus evolved in South America as supported by the intro and multiple sources. Now we get to a set of events that would make the most sense in my mind and kind of add a little bit of extra information on how the outbreak actually happened. The area presumably had many humans in it and possibly certain types of native primates. One of the interesting things is that over time the fungus was probably able to jump from the simians to the humans rather than from the insect to the humans. It's almost like how HIV made the jump from simian immunodeficiency virus to human immunodeficiency virus. While primates in the area may not have been affected by the fungus, it decimated humans, which, side tangent, I absolutely love this. It's totally supported by the game because in-game, primates were experimented on with the fungus and seemed to not suffer the ill effects of this fungus, instead coexisting with it quite.
But the scientist who was doing the experiment on the monkeys, he got bit by the monkey and he turned. Ooh. It is supported by the game. I hadn't even thought of that.
Easily, which means that they were carriers, whereas if a human was bitten by a specific monkey, they would turn. And this was seen by the scientist who actually tried to free the monkeys instead of terminating them after the experiment. He was bitten and he knew he would begin to turn. But it's always so strange because simians are able to exist with, say, SIV and not really be affected by it, and they live long lives, liken it to a cold. However, HIV completely destroys the immune system, leaving them open to opportunistic diseases. And I know I'm jumping back and forth, but it's pretty interesting to see how this comparison is very similar. So it seems quite possible in my mind that these apes in the area were eating infected insects with cordyceps in their bodies, so their bodies were able to adapt to the disease over time. So it did not affect them in the way it did humans. So
sort of like Wesley in The Princess Bride with the iocane powder. You take a little bit. Also, wasn't there like a king or something? There was like some guy in history who, Napoleon maybe? He like, somebody had just was like, is so afraid of being poisoned that they like constantly had a little bit of poison and they were just like constantly like just imbibing a little bit, just getting their bodies used to it. And I think it did work at some point. Was that Napoleon? That was somebody. Let me know who did that.
So, if I had to take a stab at it, I would say the fungus began its evolutionary path in the insects that eventually made its way into monkeys and finally made the jump to humanity via the crops that the monkeys frequented. From here, chaos broke out as human infection rates began to climb. The cordyceps would enter either by bite wound or from the spores in the air. Obviously, the most dangerous areas were the cities and large towns at this point. In the early stages, pandemonium broke out all over as nobody could pinpoint exactly what was causing the aggression and infection seen in certain individuals. Many would fall to spores simply because of ignorance and lack of understanding as what was spreading the disease. Others would quite literally be eaten alive by other infected humans. The disease spread even further by a two-pronged attack. The large population centers had people who were infected fleeing into the surrounding area, further infecting those areas, and anyone who chose to stay in the city would have to contend with the spores from the abandoned buildings, further turning the survivors. One thing that should be noted is the spores do not infect effectively in open air and have to be kind of contained within low flow areas. This suggests there needs to be a certain amount of fungal load to infect you. Breathing in one
It also just could be a poorly researched part of the game.
spore might not overload your immune system, but breathing in thousands might do the trick. Eventually, the military was called in and martial law was declared. Unfortunately, human nature reared its ugly head and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The military ruled with an iron fist, suppressing the people within the quarantine zone by withholding rations and executing many who tried to enter the city, even if they were non-infected. This led to a resistant movement called the Fireflies, who began to fight back. The government at this time was barely functioning to any effective capacity, as all branches had been shut down, and only the ones with guns ruled. This fighting between the Fireflies and the military would further destabilize areas, leading to more infections and less effective resistance against the disease. In the absolute state of human panic, many people died as society broke down, and it became a game end or be game ended scenario. Bands of hunters began to crop up, taking out people who tread on their turf with little to no conscience about it, which chased away the military, who had actually brought about a semi-stable state. Eventually, everything that could go wrong did go wrong in The Last of Us. Rather than focusing on a cure for the disease, which should have been a world effort, humanity turned against itself in an effort to secure individual survival, all while the disease spread further and further, producing more and more threats. Eventually, 20 years had passed and humanity was on the back burner. A shell of its former glory, the ones who were left scrounging the post-apocalyptic society that is rife with death and injustice. There are some safe havens, but even then, it's under authoritarian rule. These quarantine zones are few in number, and many of them have been overrun had the military abandoned it, or the people rose up and fought only later to become the oppressors themselves through time. And this is where everything kicks off. After humanity had essentially lost the fight to the disease and to itself, it seems that one person in particular may have developed some form of resistance or immunity to the cordyceps fungus. Whether this version is just a genetic mutation of the cordyceps itself or the person is unknown, but it does give hope for humanity as a whole that maybe they will rise up once again. Overall, this cordyceps fungus decimated humanity, taking out 60% of the population or infecting them. Judging by the human population being roughly 7,162,119,434 at the time of 2013, this left around 2,864,847,733 people after the outbreak. And judging by all the attacks afterwards and infighting, the population is much lower than that during the events of The Last of Us. I just want to point out, however, in our actual world, this is quite improbable. The spores of the cordyceps fungus are quite visible to the naked eye and would raise immediate suspicions about what this is. Quarantines would be activated, but soon after, the distribution of mass breathing apparatuses would become quite normal. It's fun to think about these ideas, but in reality, a disease like this would have an impact, but arguably not this sort of impact. The fungus more than likely would not react well to cold conditions due to its evolution in warm tropical climates. Humans in colder climates would likely not experience the infection rate seen in warmer climates, which means government organizations, scientists, World Health Organization, CDC personnel, military, etc. would fall back to these areas and begin working on a cure immediately. Well, that was quite biology heavy, but it explains what is happening in The Last of Us and how things got out of hand so quickly. So now that you are all caught up with the cordyceps fungus and what these zombies are infected with in The Last of Us, I will be diving into their biology and how exactly they are affected by this fungus in later episodes. There are 4 distinct stages of infection, so expect about 4 episodes out of it. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you are new, subbing is a great way to stay caught up with the channel. Well, it was, but now you have to hit that notification bell, which works about 1% of the time by my count, which is pretty cool. And if you are a regular, hitting the like helps get the video out there. I will drop my Twitter, Discord, and Patreon links in the description, and if you'd like to support the channel, those are great ways to do it. And speaking of patrons, I would like to thank mine. At the scientist tier, we have Arlan Lupe. Next up, our residents are A. Laurantis, Evan Osborne, Greater Genes 83, Oz Hickman, and Richard Millenberg. Our PhD in genetics are Allison Caspero, Andrew Lawson, Divine
I like his
Whisper,
Patreon
Lusky,
names.
and Steve N. Holding it down with our masters in biology, we have Adam Hartswick, Brendan Brotherton, Cameron Smith, Edgy McGee, Scott Grant, The Wren of Lies, and The Otterman. And with their bachelors in morphological sciences, we have Ahigao Comics, Anthony Charles West, Anthony Wolf, Captain Gasmask, Dustin Ellis, Eric Scott Gillies, Jims, Professor Bennett's, Riot, Russell McBride.
Maybe I should
Thank you guys for your continued support. Also, just want to throw it out there, I am playing Dead Space on Impossible mode.
Maybe I should be subbing to Roanoke Gaming for me, and that is the only way that I will ever get any kind of degree in science. You know, I wouldn't mind having a fake degree in science just by being a patron of somebody whose YouTube I do enjoy. I have seen a bunch of Roanoke Gaming's videos. One of the first ones I ever saw was his video on Nope. This is not necessarily a plug for Roanoke Gaming, but it has kind of become that. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this one with me. I am always fascinated to learn more about the baddies in the games I like, and I love The Last of Us. I have loved The Last of Us for a long time. Let's see here, it was probably it came out in 2013, right? So it's like, it was around that time that like was the first time I got to play it. Or, okay, all right, let's not lie. I did not play the game. I went over to my friend's house at 10 in the morning on a Saturday and watched him play the game with 6 other people. That is how we spent our Saturday and also the Sunday. It's like we crushed that game in like 2 days. So ever since then I have seen Let's Plays. I have rewatched some of my favorite ones, and now I'm introducing it to another friend of mine right now, and he has made me play the game a little bit. I have at least played a little bit of this game now on my own, and I am bad at it. Shocking to those of you who know me. But it is so much fun. I love the game. I loved the show so far. And I'm excited to see more of Roanoke Gaming's videos about it. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I'll stop gushing. And I hope you all join me for the next time I watch a Roanoke Gaming video on the cordyceps fungus and The Last of Us. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to see more content like this, let me know in the comments below. You can also become a patron. That way you get to participate in polls to determine what we watch sooner rather than later. You can have unedited content. You can get it out a little bit earlier, especially the movie and TV reactions. All sorts of fun perks if you are a patron. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Cheers.